Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Keandra Young, and I'm the president of the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce. And we're going to go ahead and get started with the Oak Cliff Chamber's Public Policy and Quality of Life Committee meetings. Again, thank you very much for joining us this beautiful morning. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to our Quality of Life chair, which is Crystal Ratana, and she's representing Children's Health and is going to be today's moderator. So, Crystal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Keandra. Well, first off, just want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. We're really excited to have a conversation with some of our amazing city leaders on really just what the city is doing in regards to COVID response and some of the relief efforts they're working on. So we're really excited to have our guests with us today. And before we get started, I just want to kind of go over some housekeeping. So during the discussion, we'll be having everybody on mute. And then if you have any questions throughout the discussion, please feel free to put those in the chat function. And then towards the end of the discussion, we'll have the opportunity to ask some of those questions that I know a lot of you may have throughout the discussion. And so with that, I would like to introduce our panelists for today. So first we have Councilmember West. He was elected to Dallas City Council on May 2019 to represent District 1 and the citizens of our Oak Cliff area. Prior to his election, he served on the Dallas City Planning Commission for a few years, and he currently serves as chair of the city's Housing and Homelessness Solutions Committee. Next, we have Councilmember Thomas, who actually sits on our Oak Cliff board. He is a native of Dallas and born and raised here. He is a council member for District 3, who does represent a small portion of Oak Cliff. He is the chair of the Workforce Education and Equity Committee, as well as the City of Dallas Census Committee. And he currently serves as Mayor Pro Temp for the City of Dallas. Next we have Councilmember McGough. He serves District 10 on Dallas City Council, which is the Lake Highlands, East Dallas area. He serves as chair of the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, as well as the Ad Hoc Judicial Nominations Committee. And he was appointed as Deputy Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Dallas last year. So thank you all so much for joining us here today. And really what we want to do is just educate and really let our members know kind of what the city is doing and COVID and some of the things that are happening under Mayor Johnson's leadership. You know, in March 17th, the mayor created 2 new ad hoc committees, the COVID-19 Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Recovery and Assistance, chaired by Councilmember Thomas, and the Ad Hoc Committee on Human Resources and Social Recovery and Assistance, chaired by Councilmember McGough. So first, I would kind of like to go to Councilmember Thomas and have you kind of let us know what the purpose of the Ad Hoc COVID Committee is, and really what the goals are, but also some of the initiatives that you've been working on thus far throughout in the last few weeks.
Sure. Can you hear me? Good morning.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good morning, everyone. And I want to thank Keandra and the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce for hosting this important conversation. I was just talking with Deputy Mayor Pro Tem McGough about a road show, about his having an opportunity, and this will be our first stop, actually, have an opportunity to talk to many of our stakeholders about what the city is doing to address the effects of COVID-19. So I am the immediate past Mayor Pro Tem. I don't want to take away from Mayor Pro Tem Madrano. I was Mayor Pro Tem this time last year. And so I'm honored to have been appointed as chair of our economic recovery committee as relates to COVID-19. We're focused on providing relief for our businesses by the effects of COVID-19. Also looking at the impact on the city as relates to our budget, because we know some of our income that the city is dependent upon our taxes and things of that nature. We're going to take a hit on that. So that's also area that that's the goals of the committee, 2 of our broader goals. over the past few weeks, we began working on identifying different areas of focus for each of the committee members. So the council is divided in half. Mayor Johnson appointed 7 of us to the committee I chair and 7 of us to the committee that Deputy Mayor Pro Tem McGough chairs. Some of the responsibilities that some of the council members, area of focus that the council members who serve on this particular committee have, and Councilmember West is going to talk more about this, is small business and what we're going to do to be able to support small businesses, hotelers, workforce, which is the committee, the standing committee that I chair, and the census, and continue to keep the focus on the census. Our chambers, keeping our chambers informed. We do a weekly call every Thursday at 4 o'clock. We have one today. Councilmember West really is taking the lead on that, and as the chair of the committee, he asked me to come on and just kind of give updates and kind of moderate that conversation. And so these are just some of the areas of focus, as well as federal and state updates. So many of the federal dollars, we were just briefed yesterday as a council on which dollars that we're expected to receive from the federal government through the CARES Act. So a couple of projects that we began immediately working on is providing relief for the tenants and homeowners in terms of tenant and mortgage recovery. My committee on Tuesday, we heard and made recommendations to the full council to approve a mortgage and rental assistance program. It will provide up to $1,500 for individuals who are impacted by COVID-19. The money, I want to make sure everyone's clear on it, the money will go directly to the landlord, or it'll go directly to the utility company. So it won't be a stimulus check where individuals will come and they'll get the money themselves, but the money will go to their landlord or the utility company. And so we feel pretty good that next Wednesday we'll vote and we'll approve that. Another program that I'm really excited about is our small business continuity fund, which is going to be a $2.5 million grant and a $2.5 million loan. These funds will be available for small businesses that are here in Dallas. And so I'll go into a little bit more in terms of the criteria as we have the conversation a little bit later. But I just wanted to begin by talking about what the committee's focus is, what we're doing, and hopefully next Wednesday, we'll be able to vote on both of those programs and be one of the first large cities, if not one of the first cities in Texas, to announce our plan to support our small and local businesses here in Dallas.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate that. And I just want to note, these committees were created on March 17th. So the work that you're doing over the past 3 weeks has just been tremendous. As I know you've met a few times, and so just want to thank you for that update. I did want to note that my co-chair, Andrea Sanders, is on the line. She chairs our Quality of Life Committee, and I chair our Public Policy Committee. So just want to recognize her and the work that she's doing. So thank you for joining us, Andrea. Next, I want to bring up Councilmember McGough, and really, again, just give us an update on the goal of your committee and kind of some of the things that you're working on to assist us in during this time.
Well, good morning, and certainly I agreed to do this because I love the work of this chamber, and because Crystal and Keandra asked, and I just amazing people. But I didn't realize one of the side benefits was, for some of these faces and names I get to see on the screen, it brings a lot of joy to see y'all this morning. Dr. Adamas, haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you, and there's so many. I just want to say thank y'all for engaging and being part of this. We're all going through different times and different experiences through this. And I was thinking last night, my grandfather was one of these in the greatest generation that, the minute he heard about Pearl Harbor, he hitchhiked to the train station, got the train to San Antonio, enlisted, and spent the next 27 years in the as a lieutenant colonel in the Army. And I'm reminded of the meme that was circulating when this first started that, look, our grandparents were called to go into war. We're called to sit on the couch. We got this. And when I think about that, it was kind of humorous at first as we go through all this. But what I love is so many people who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but aren't just sitting on the couch, are stepping up in ways across our community that is it's just really inspiring to watch. And certainly the people on this call and my two colleagues that are here are those that have been running from the very beginning. I remember when it first started, before we had any committees or anything else, Councilmember West had, I think, 14 different groups assigned and was working with every small business and had everything moving before anybody else could even catch up with them. And I thought that was just showing great leadership. And Councilmember Thomas has been just a leader from the beginning on this. We came in together and we've been working hip to hip on these issues for a long time. And as you mentioned, Crystal, last night I was up past midnight, so when I was looking at the date, I thought it was already the 17th, and I was like, it's exactly 1 month to the date, but we're not even there yet. It's been a really incredible last month. As you mentioned, our committee, the ad hoc committee on COVID-19 Human and Social Recovery and Assistance, I still have to look at notes to read the full title, has been working incredibly hard. We've had today will be our 5th meeting in less than a month. We've addressed some of the issues that all of us are experiencing. And as Chairman Thomas mentioned, the way the mayor explained this to me when we first started is his committee is working on, keeping businesses functioning to the extent we can, bringing them back as quickly as we can, and really focusing on the economic side of this. And then he looked at me and he said, and your committee is everything else. And when you start feeling the weight of all the impacts that our neighbors, our friends, our loved ones are all going through at a time like this, it's a huge weight. And we just hit the ground running. There's a lot of things that are outside of our control on City Council. There's just a lot of stuff that's being led from the federal level and the state level and the county level. And so we have areas where we can fit in, but we're also trying to not get in the way of other progress and things that are happening with some of our amazing nonprofits and small businesses and corporations that are changing their business model to step in and do some really good work. So it's really an exciting time to be a part of it, but it's the weight of this is enormous at times. And so what we did was we divided into really some focus areas under our committee headings. And it was either fortuitous or great planning on behalf of the mayor, and that he gave people to our committee that have strengths in some of these areas already, and we're doing some really good work. The first kind of focus area was really dealing with our hospitals and healthcare system. As so many of you know, that's the front lines of this particular issue. And so Jennifer Gates, who has a history as a nurse and a lot of experience in this space and relationships with a lot of the leadership of the hospital. Also, she had gone through the Ebola crisis very closely with me when we were going through that process a few years back, and had a lot of work in that space. And so it was natural for her to take leadership on a lot of those issues. And whether it's keeping track of hospital beds and ventilators and PPEs, or it's trying to set up the available pop-up hospital at the K. Bailey Hutchinson, there's been some massive undertakings in that space that we've been working on the last month. Additionally, Chairman Omar Narvaez, who has been working with our Senior Affairs Commission and with our elder, all the groups that are focusing on elder needs, we were able to put him real quickly, and he's kind of formed a whole leadership group to address the needs around our long-term care facilities and some of the top needs for our seniors that are either shut in now or in social isolation, and trying to connect and meet some of those needs in that space as well. And of course, our most vulnerable populations, which is one of our focus. Kara Mendelson, who previously ran a homeless shelter facility and has experience in that space, has stepped up and led a lot of our homeless response, whether it's specifically getting people sheltered, where we created quickly the homeless shelter in the Kay Bailey Hutchinson Convention Center, or coordinating communication between the different service providers, as well as creating a new 311 standalone that's coming to help provide information specifically on COVID. So a lot of what was happening in our community, and still is people just can't get the information that they need. So really trying to stand up that help as well. We have, of course, everybody's experienced some part of this too. Jaime Resendez, who strength to step up with education and youth services and coordinate with all the different school districts that our city encompasses, and the needs around getting Wi-Fi connections so that our students can still work and get schoolwork done through this time, and a lot of youth services, and dealing with a whole new sort of focus on childcare that's sprung up in that as well. And so just really proud of his efforts there. David Blewett, who has the arts district and lots of parks, has focused on those particular areas, and now he's really been pushing towards, I'm hoping he'll take some leadership as we look towards aggressively directing towards recovery. I mean, we're hearing now, we're seeing evidence of that. We're kind of at that point where we've done a pretty good job of flattening the curve, and so a lot of the attention has to move from crisis, figuring out how to deal with this, to moving forward on what we can do to come out of this in a productive way. And it's going to be a new normal. It's going to be very different than it was before, but I'm thankful to have his leadership on that. Councilmember Chairwoman Carolyn King Arnold is focusing on neighborhood associations and connecting resources that we have available all over to the needs of our community on the local level. And we've just got word today that we've ramped up or doubled the testing at the different testing centers. And I just saw a memo earlier that one of the Walgreens in Southern Dallas is going to be one of the Walgreens testing facilities. So we're encouraged by some of that movement. And then the rest, public safety has fallen under my responsibilities. And I was just 2 days ago at the Northeast substation, where the major was brought in Fletcher's Corny Dogs to feed the officers that were coming in. And what a neat opportunity to see just a few minutes of reprieve, where people are talking about the State Fair of Texas and eating a corny dog versus all the other stuff that our frontline first responders are dealing with. And that Northeast was our first station, and I got to visit with and catch up with our very first DPD COVID officer, or positive officer, and she's already back working, and her whole quarantine unit is back working. And so we're able to have a lot of success in this. But we've effectively transitioned our entire city over the last 3 weeks. And while it has not been perfectly smooth, and we still have people that aren't following the shelter in place, and there's a lot of issues with, almost our entire enforcement arm of the code compliance department has shifted from normal duties to enforcing and monitoring the orders that have come out and trying to keep people safe and keep this curve flattened. And so it's really quite impressive. We've also seen amazing work from our philanthropy community, who has aligned and been flexible and changed their entire plans, not just for this year, but next year, and changed to get the resources where they need to be. And they're coming alongside, and we're leveraging each other's work through this. I could go on and on. Last thing I mentioned is we've had a lot of issues with food insecurity and trying to keep people fed, especially with the kids not being in school. And the groups that have formed up organically around the city have been beautiful. And then we have had some really coordinated efforts. I see Pam Gerber, my hero, on here as well, and she connected us with some good friends who have created opportunities for a lot of those that were getting laid off in the hospitality industry, are working with groups that are now creating food and meals, one specifically with Cafe Momentum and Chad Hauser downtown, who has partnered with Richardson Independent School District and have provided over 60,000 families meals over the last few weeks and weekends. And so we're feeding the kids on the weekend, and they're seeing that this need was so broad that they're likely going to already continue this through the summer, regardless of where we are with COVID during that time as well. So there's, in the midst of a lot of things that are changing our lives in a negative way, there's a ton of positive and a ton of things that keep me encouraged. And again, two of those are these leaders that I get to be on this call with this morning, with Chairman Thomas and Chairman West, because there will not be anything that's for a lack of effort. We have been in long meetings and hard meetings and continue to work through every one of these issues as good as we could. And I just thank all of you for the way you're engaging in this, and the chamber and certainly Crystal, I appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much. And you mentioned meals, and I just want to give a shout out to Jason with Hunger Busters. I know they're working on hundreds of meals for West Dallas and parts of our community, and that's really important, as a lot of our food banks are seeing an influx of over 250%, with 76% of those families being new families that have never visited before. So you're right in that this is definitely a concerted effort of all of us. So thank you for your leadership on that. And what interesting, you were going through the list of members, and for both committees, Councilmember Thomas's committee as well, each of the members have kind of their own role, kind of their own kind of umbrella, if you will. And so Councilmember West is part of the Economic Relief Committee, and he also has a role within that committee, specifically around small business and relief. And so Councilmember West, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing as part of that committee and how you're assisting small businesses and those efforts?
Absolutely. Glad to be here at my home chamber, and good to see everybody this morning. I think, and I echo what both my colleagues said. It's been an honor to work with them, and I think you really see in times of crisis like this, people who are, they just dig in and get to work. And both of these guys are those types of individuals, along with a lot of our fellow council members. I mean, they just really dug in, took the challenge at head, and have really shown great leadership here. I think one of the smartest things that both Casey and Adam did were appointing the focus areas and identifying the strengths that they have of the council members on their independent subcommittees. And Casey had assigned me to, Councilman Thomas had assigned me to help with small businesses. I've sort of tag teamed with my fellow Councilman Adam Bazaldua, who's been doing restaurants, and then Mayor Pro Tem Medrano for the chamber work. And we're just sort of all working in tandem, because they have a lot of these efforts fall under the same umbrella. I was thinking, as Adam was talking a minute ago, I was thinking about sort of the stages I've been through, learning and understanding this COVID process and reacting. And for me, it was really like a learning stage, and then educating others stage, which is constant, and then an action stage, which we're really in the middle of now. On the learning stage, it was understanding what kind of resources we're going to be getting from the feds. What's coming down. There's been 3 relief bills with a 4th one on the way, and each of those bills has been greater and more impactful than the one previous, and have been very different in the amount of relief we're going to be getting. And so once those bills started forming, it was a matter of understanding what that means for the city, what kind of gaps are going to be left, and how we can fill it. Some of the things that happened, like in the first couple of weeks, were businesses, especially restaurants, were worried about their quarterly sales tax that were due. So, we were getting just bombarded with calls in the different council districts and at City Hall. And Representative Anchia was great about taking my call anytime I called him and getting us looped in with the state on that, and then being able to have a coordinated effort that we could then communicate out to all the business owners. So we've had some great state partners that have helped us just handling things as they come up. As we started to understand the Paycheck Protection Plan and the disaster recovery loan, we started hosting SBA town halls. It seems like everybody in Dallas has hosted a town hall, about this, and there's still more to come. But we didn't want to miss out on providing the resources that we were aware of, and so we have hosted an SBA town hall. We've got another town hall completely in Spanish today that's going to happen this afternoon. I'll make sure you get that information. We are in the process next week of holding a town hall, connecting people with bankers, because some banks are just not playing well with their people, I've heard, on helping them process a loan. So we're bringing a wealth of bankers into a town hall to be able to provide more. We've got a workforce commission town hall also hosted by Rafael and Chia tomorrow at noon to give people information on, just general workforce issues. As Councilman Thomas mentioned, I've been hosting weekly Chamber of Commerce calls with Mayor Pro Tem Medrano. Those have been very successful in sharing best practices. So the Takeout Tuesday campaign that a lot of you folks may have seen, that was something that came out of those discussions and has been spread citywide. Most of the city, I think, has adopted that. So it's been a good practice from that. We've also kind of been hearing from chambers on some things that are working in their districts and some challenges they've had, and have been able to share those. They've been very good calls. We've also been holding calls weekly with our developers and our construction industry every Friday. And what came out of that is what I think you mentioned a few minutes ago, Crystal, was looking at, all right, so we've got all this money that's coming in from the feds, right? But and through Councilman Thomas's ad hoc committee, we've got the Small Business Continuity Fund, which he talked about, which is rolling out if we vote on it here next week. But what else can we do as a city to make it easier for small businesses to recover after COVID that doesn't necessarily involve money? Are there any other opportunities? And specifically looking at OCMOC, the Oak Cliff Municipal Center, and processes that are there that are antiquated or slow. We've been hearing it for years from restaurateurs, small business owners, the development community, that OCMOC is antiquated. You still have to go down there and physically hand a check. You can't pay for anything with a credit card. Permitting and inspections are all done the old school method. There's no virtual way to do any of this stuff. So to steal Deputy Mayor Pro Tem's line here, there's some silver linings that came out of this. And one of them is we're getting all kinds of great suggestions that we are hopefully going to put into action on modernization of cities' techniques. And that's what we've got this subcommittee with Courtney Garrett from DDI and Angela Hunt are collecting information from across the city. And we're going to be recommending the top 15 to 20 things that the city can do to speed up our procedures. There was an article out a few years ago. I don't remember the title of it, but it talked about like the 20 dumbest city codes that we have that should be redone or thrown out. And one of those was a code that you had to pay a yearly landscaping fee to the city to have planters out in front of your storefront business, right? So we're bringing that article back up, and suggestions like that. All those are going to be filtered through Angela and Courtney to be made as a recommendation to us for us to take quick action on in the next 30 days. So that's that. Under Deputy Mayor Pro Tem's committee, they're dealing with the homelessness. We've got a really amazing new kind of focus that I've seen come into homelessness because of this unfortunate situation. Kevin Odom, our interim director, has been fantastic. He's done a great job, and of our Office of Homelessness Solutions. And there is a plan to get 300 new rapid rehousing units together, which would be fantastic because we haven't seen that type of aggressive plan, at least since I've been here. So I'm really cautiously optimistic we'll see some benefits come out of the homelessness realm as well. I know that's not my topic, but I wanted to just mention that because that's my non-COVID committee. And that's really about it. I'm happy to take questions. Don't forget today is Ovation Day, right? Tonight, we're all going to go outside and cheer on our first responders. So thank you, Crystal.
Thank you so much. And one of the things you mentioned was the fact that a lot of this unfortunate situation that we're in has brought to light some of the things that that maybe we've been wanting to do as a city, but we haven't been able to do. So I think it's great that we're able to kind of look at those things and potentially have those things implemented, so that way it could really alleviate some of the barriers that some of our small businesses have moving forward. and we'll go ahead and start with some of the Q&A. I have a few questions for you all. For our guests, if you have a question, please feel free to include those in the chat using the chat feature. We'll definitely try and get to your questions. But Councilmember West, I know that one of the things that you were working on was the small business survey, and just wondering, what are some of the things that that kind of maybe shocked you from the survey, or some of the things that you kind of knew that some of our business good response? And is there anything that we can do? We have, dozens of guests here today that in support of that effort.
So we've had hundreds of suggestions already come in. A lot of them have been around for years. So these are suggestions that have already been on the table through TREC, the Real Estate Council, or the Dallas Builders Association, which kind of focuses on residential builds. So a lot of these have been around, and these are construction related items. And these are items that are going to probably take longer than just 30 days for us to fix. They haven't fixed them in years, so I don't think 30 days is going to really change that. That's of the hundreds that we have, that's probably 75%. So to the extent folks on here can help us, think about low-hanging fruit items. Maybe if you've gone down there, or you have a friend has a restaurant or a storefront, and something they complained about, I think just asking people that who are your friends, your drinking buddies, your people you go to church with, are asking them, like, what are some challenges you've had? The one thing that I just couldn't believe is that even if we now have this online submission system, which we're for permits, for applications, but even with that, you still have to physically go down there and hand them a check at the Oak Cliff Municipal Center. It's not that inconvenient for us because we live in Oak Cliff, a lot of us in here, but for someone in Carol Middleton's district, way far north, that's crazy to have to physically go down there to hand a check. How inefficient is that? And so that's an obvious no-brainer for me. I haven't verified this still exists, but I've been told there's an awning fee that's just to have an awning over your storefront is like $3,000 or $4,000. I mean, as we're coming into recovery, I think those are the kind of things we got to look at. Just doing away with the landscape fee for some potted plants is a no-brainer. We had a great suggestion come out of one of our business owners on Jefferson. Juan Cervantes had suggested that we do away with parking meter fees for the first 15 minutes through COVID, so that those restaurants who are struggling are we still here? I don't know what happened. Can you hear me, Crystal?
I can hear you, Chad.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe that was just my computer. Did anything else happen, or was that just me?
That was us. Go for it.
Oh, no, you're fine.
All right. But doing away with parking meter fees for the first 15 minutes on Jefferson, because these restaurants are already just barely making it. Someone having to worry about getting a ticket for stopping somewhere for 5 minutes to get food, and they don't have change. For me, that was a no-brainer, an easy fix. They were already doing it in Deep Ellum, so we just had code enforcement carry that over to, parking carry that over to Oak Cliff. So some cool things have come out of it. Here's some data just for folks who are data geeks. I've been tracking the fast food industry because it's sort of an indicator of where the economy goes a little bit. And although this is a very unique situation, and this is per my friend owns a few Jack in the Boxes. He lives in Oak Cliff. Fast food restaurant industry can survive typically if your sales are not down more than 20%. There's been a period as of last week and the week before where they actually dipped below 20 to 30%. Not sustainable, even for fast food, which are mostly open right now. As of yesterday, across DFW, they're back up to 15% below normal. So I don't know if that just means people are getting more comfortable going out to buy fast food, but it is an indication that there are, at least that piece of our industry is they're surviving sort of, on life support right now. I think our dine-in restaurants are going to be the ones that are really we're gonna have a real hard time, getting through much more of this if this continues. So.
Thank you. And I think if anything, Takeout Tuesdays, supporting our small businesses as much as possible is definitely something that I know the Chamber and Keandra are definitely pushing for. So thank you for that. I did have another question for you all.
Crystal.
Sorry, go ahead.
I sent you a text. I said I had a follow-up to.
Oh, sure. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. As far as the survey results, something that was enlightening for me was to see that a number of those small businesses that have 5 or fewer employees, including the owner of the business, were specifically requested a need for grants. And those who had larger number of employees requested loans. And so in the small business continuity program, we designed it specifically based on the feedback that we got from the survey. So oftentimes people say, well, the city's going to do what they want to do. In this case, we took the feedback directly from those who responded to the survey, and we designed the program specifically to meet the needs and the feedback that we received from those businesses.
Ms. Dora Zapata had a question. I think this one's probably for you, Mr. West. Is there an organization that is leading the development of the 300 units of rapid rehousing that you mentioned earlier as part of your our discussion?
Great question. Right now, I believe it's just in Office of Homelessness Solutions, and Deputy Mayor Pro Tem can probably got his finger a little bit more on the pulse of this than I do, but I understand it's just there right now, and that they're probably got to develop they've got to develop the RFP process. Generally on the rapid rehousing, the way it's at least worked pre-COVID is we use the funds to go to existing landlords who have units, and we try to get them to accept like voucher payments to house some of these individuals. So it's not necessarily a new build. I don't know if that's changed in this situation, but I doubt it. Adam, do you know?
Yeah, so we're going to, anybody that wants to look in today, our committee meeting starts at 1, and Kevin Oden, this is one of the briefings that he's giving today to the committee. And so as those of you in the space about rapid rehousing, I mean, this is the piece of the puzzle, of the overall puzzle to try to address people experiencing homelessness, of those that are just recently or about to be, or at the closest edge of falling into homelessness, and trying to get those families and those individuals in a housing option very quickly. And so it helps to pay rent, fees, and this kind of thing at some of these units that Chairman West was talking about. And so there's the city is kind of leading this effort, but they're going to be working with some of the usual characters, the nonprofits that have been in this space for a while. And some of this is just trying to allocate the funding, because, well, the other big ticket item that's on the agenda today in our committee is to address the proposal for restricting or requiring a notice before anybody can be evicted in the city of Dallas. And so we've been working extremely hard over the last really week and a half to have Dallas lead the way, of put something in place that will not only survive legal scrutiny, that will provide some protections from a lot of the folks that we're all talking about, including some of us in this circumstance that are potentially dealing with unable to pay rent right now, while you also can't go into work or you're required to shelter in place. And so we've worked very hard with a lot of people across the city and the state to create an ordinance that will provide some protection, but also takes into consideration that the landlords have the same issues that we're having with their mortgages and their lenders to try to keep the housing options available. And so those are the two kind of big ticket items that we're talking about in the committee today, along with all the updates of the other things we've been working on.
Can I make a crystal quick clarification on just for folks who are not in the homelessness industry on
Sure.
what rapid rehousing is? I don't know if you can read that. That's so basically and I had to learn this coming into this committee too, is generally, folks you end up in the shelter off the street, or when you first get homeless, right? And the goal, if we're doing our job right, is to get them out of the shelter as soon as possible, but within 3 months. And then the rapid rehousing, the transitional period, is where you're in a temporary home before you either get back into where you're self-sufficient on your own, or you're paying your own apartment and all that, or you end up in a permanent supportive situation. You're just either too disabled or you're too elderly to be able to work and get back in the workforce. And so the rapid rehousing, that transitional piece, is generally from 3 months to 2 years. And with a few exceptions, it's generally an apartment situation. And then the goal is to get out of that and into the workforce, or get into permanent supportive housing, which is kind of usually a different funding mechanism for that. So anyway, that's what we're talking about, rapid rehousing. We've got a need. I don't know with COVID, what the need is at this point. Adam's committee may identify that today, but even before COVID, we were in need of about 4,000 units of rapid rehousing in the city. So it's kind of what we're looking at.
Thank you. We actually had Minerva Rodriguez wanted to ask you, Councilmember West, where can we find some of that information that you talked about, the small business information and we definitely, would it be your website, council website, or if you'd like, you can send us the information and we can make sure to share any information that we've discussed today, as well as where to find information on the council meetings, the COVID meetings as well. We can share that with all of those who registered here today as well.
When Councilman Thomas had asked, I know he had directed the Office of Economic Development to create their website has a lot of it. Anything that's not on there, we'll shoot over to you, Crystal, to get out.
And Chad, I also asked Carrie, because it was, when you go to the city's website, there's a big yellow link as far as information regarding COVID-19. When you click that link, you can go to small businesses, but from small businesses, it was kind of vague from there. I had them link that small business link directly to the Office of Economic Development's page with all the resources. So now it's only 2 clicks and you have a list of all the resources that are available that the City of Dallas is hosting.
Thank you. And some people have asked regarding the programs that you mentioned, Councilmember Thomas, the Small Business Continuity Program, as well as the Rental Mortgage Assistance Program. And our understanding is that those will be voted on next week, and then they'll be launched at the end of the month, beginning of May. And I'm assuming that information will also be on that same site that you just mentioned, correct?
It'll be on that site. It's going to be on all of our social media. The Public Affairs Office is going to send that information out. I'm going to host a webinar, a teleconference. I'm sure some of my colleagues will too, to make sure that people know that this program is available, what the criteria is for the program, and then also where they can go to fill out the application. And the key for both programs is a completed application. If you submit an incomplete application, it's going to be rejected. So make sure that you submit a completed application on the mortgage and tenant assistance program. We're looking at probably 72 hours. We're trying to turn this around pretty quick from the time we receive a completed application to when till the evaluation is made and that determination is that payment's going to go. And once again, the payment's not going to go to the individual. The payment will go to either the landlord or it will go to the utility company. And so city staff has already been talking with people like the Apartment Association Greater Dallas, find out what time frame and other entities to make sure that we can turn that around in such a time frame that it's acceptable and the tenant or the resident will not be punished or penalized in any way.
Perfect, thank you. And we do have a resource page on our Oak Cliff Chamber website that Keandra and Philando and team have put together. So I'm sure whenever we get that information, we'll definitely try and add that to our resource page for small businesses and nonprofits and just anybody in our area that wants to know more about those programs. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. The mayor just announced a few days ago, I believe, the task force on economic recovery, chaired by one of our former Federal Reserve Bank presidents. And Governor Abbott earlier this week talked about reopening some of the businesses, and I think said to give details of that here in the next few days. Some people believe that when we come out of this pandemic that it'll be turnkey, but I know that you all as leaders have had discussions, and it's definitely not going to be the case. Have you maybe Councilmember McGough or Councilmember Thomas, have you all discussed or know kind of what that's going to look like, or maybe some of the things that have been done in other parts of the country as some of the surges start going down with COVID, how the gradual progression of us opening up the economy, if you will look like?
So I'll just jump in and say I don't know the answer yet.
Okay.
What I would sort of forecast is that there's going to be a point where we can look at you'll hear all on the news and everything. It's all about testing and being able to isolate and start watching as we figure this where it is, and making sure that we're not exposing people again, because we've already seen in some areas of the planet where there's a kind of a second wave, and there's other concerns that we're going to have for a while. So I do not believe it's going to be, whatever May 1st hits and all the doors are open and we go back to going to the ballpark to watch the Rangers play. I think it's going to be systematic and step by step of once we figure out kind of the parameters around each sort of business on how you can do things and keep people still distanced and ensure that we've got testing and trying to keep only healthy people out and keeping people that potentially have this virus in, until we have some degree of herd immunity, an actual vaccine or something like that. I think it's going to be a phased process where we're trying to do the best we can and to keep people healthy. But as has been said, we as a country, and I think Dallas is like we always are in Dallas, we kind of don't usually get it as bad and we come out of it quicker. I think we'll do that. But it's going to be a thoughtful, and it's going to be a longer process than any of us really want it to be. Again, I'm still limited on information. We haven't even had the whole task force get together yet. I'm not even sure who all's on it yet. I'm really curious about that. When he first announced it, I was like, yeah, okay, we'll get Mark Cuban on there, and all, now he's answering questions for the president on his group. So again, I think it'll be a lot of collaboration, and people will work towards those goals pretty quickly. But I don't know yet what that'll look like.
No, thank you. And really, it was just to have that conversation and just touch on that, because I think a lot of people feel like or think that this is definitely going to be a turnkey situation. And what we've seen from county judge and what other parts of the country, it's definitely been a gradual progression on figuring out which businesses are essential and which ones we need to start to wean down to be able to open up for us. And we definitely don't want the second surge to occur here as well. But so anyhow, I definitely thank you all for being here and for having a conversation with us. We'll follow up with our panelists here today and get all the information and links, and we'll be able to share those out with all of our members here today. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Andrea, myself as chairs of the Quality of Life Committee and the Public Safety or Public Policy Committee for the Chamber, as well as Keandra and Philando. We'll continue to have these conversations as things come up. I did want us to end on a high note, so I'm going to have some rapid fire questions for our panelists. And if you please feel free to continue to chat, we'll be on for a couple of minutes longer if you have any other questions. But really rapid fire questions for our three council members. So after this is over and we're able to go out and dine, what's the first restaurant you're going to go to? McGough?
Okay, I'll jump in. And this is a little longer than rapid fire just because I'm one of these made very bad decisions leading into this, in that I started a diet right before this all hit. And my wife is an amazing baker, and she has been cooking and baking my favorite things on the planet, whether it's cookies or chocolate sheath cake or all these amazing things that they're coming up with. we have a family recipe of what we call a dirty snowball, like a meringue chocolate chip thing. And we're frying dirty snowballs so we can enter it in the state fair this year, because it's going to happen and it's going to work out. All this stuff. And I haven't eaten any of this stuff. So I have had fantasies of food that I'm going to have, but it's going to start with things like chocolate chip cookies as opposed to one of our favorite restaurants. But I'll leave it at that. Sorry.
You really just didn't want to just choose your favorite, because all of your D10 restaurants are going to come at you and try to be the one. So, Councilmember Thomas.
I am going to Delta Charlie's. It's right by my district office. I'm there at my district office 2 days a week, and I look and I see a dark building. And so I will be going right next door to Delta Charlie's the day that they reopen.
Thank you, Councilmember West.
Well, I've got two. I will. My favorite Mexican food in Oak Cliff is El Ranchito, so I'm going to probably go there. But I love going to Gloria's with Keandra. So if Keandra will go with me and get a margarita, I will probably go there first with no kids.
I am ready.
You're ready? Let's do it.
Well, thank y'all for indulging me with that. I love asking that question because we just missed the weather and all of that. So thank y'all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and all of your leadership. And thank you all for joining us this morning. We'll continue to communicate with you all, and please feel free to reach out to us should you ever need anything from us at the Chamber. So thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if we've got some folks still on, I wanted to share really quick our resource page. Is that okay?
Sure, yes, let's do that.
Philando is going to put it on. He's going to share his page really quickly. And so I know some folks wanted some information. And so what we're doing on this resource page, Philando, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, we are updating it as we're getting information. So you can click on any of these icons, if you would, to get the most updated information in these respective fields. And so we just wanted to forward folks here to oakcliffchamber.org/COVID-19/. And it's got information in English and in Spanish for different kinds of COVID resources. So we wanted to forward folks there. Anyway, thank you all very, very much to our panelists, Councilmember Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Adam McGough, and Councilmember West. Thank you. And our committee chair, and to our chairman, Steve Camp, our current chair that's on the phone with us. Thank you all for everything you've done. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.